I suggested we break up, and she suggested we stay in an open relationship. 19F, 18F. Hello, I would appreciate your guidance on our positions. We are not contentious or uneasy. We simply wish to share our perspectives on this issue and seek counsel. Summary: I initiated a breakup, and she proposed an open relationship. We are both in college and were each other's first partners. I, 19 years old, female, and my girlfriend, 18, women-loving women, have been in a relationship for 1 year and 6 months. I feel like I am not the same person I once was for her, and my previous feelings about how I lived my life have resurfaced as I navigate my college experience. I want to end our relationship because I wish to explore my identity and life without constraints. I have always felt restricted, whether it was due to my narcissistic mother or this relationship, and I have never had the freedom to pursue what I truly desire. I dislike the idea of breaking up with her, but I would never betray her. She was my first love from high school, and as we navigate college life, my reluctance to wait until we have shared assets and responsibilities to try living a different lifestyle presents a significant obstacle. She is a wonderful individual, kind and compassionate, and she has her own experiences with a homophobic mother that kept us apart for a considerable period during our relationship. We embarked on our college journey together and have become a strong couple while making friends. However, my struggles may differ considerably from hers. I sensed that our emotional maturity levels were misaligned, leaving me feeling like I was reiterating my core values without being heard. This situation influenced my concept of respect. She expressed that she feels like she is walking on eggshells around me, which stems from my handling of issues outside our relationship that previously led me to suggest a separation. The frustration I experience from that situation causes her to react in specific ways, which is apparent during our arguments. We share many mutual friends, so if I do not invite her to an event, she is unlikely to engage in any activities. Before we began dating, I felt apprehensive about being in a relationship with someone who seemed more sheltered than I was. If I struggle with awkwardness, I could only imagine her experiences. We did not start dating until 6 months after we met. Our relationship began slowly, devoid of sexual intimacy, focusing instead on conversation and expressing affection. I wish to maintain a relationship with her, which is why I proposed breaking up. I have been supportive since then, striving to answer any questions she may have. However, just moments ago, she inquired whether I was open to an open relationship. I replied that I could be if she was, but her previous comments regarding me and other girls made me feel that a breakup might be the better option. She desires for me to stay with her and is willing to fill that role for me, yet I do not feel at ease without understanding her true emotions. If she chooses not to date anyone else within this open relationship, how am I meant to respond? I already feel awful about allowing our relationship to evolve in this way, only to seek forgiveness for wanting to explore with others. She is always with me, and it now feels somewhat strange without her presence. Nevertheless, I feel freer and less burdened, unlike most people after a breakup. I want to know if it is in my best interest to consider this option with her or to firmly maintain a complete break from the relationship. She stated that in our open relationship, she does not intend to communicate with anyone else, but would initiate things only if she encounters someone, as opposed to me taking that lead. I feel guilty about ending things with her and would like to consider the possibility, as I do not foresee myself being jealous. We would establish guidelines and expectations, though perhaps not to the extent of a traditional monogamous couple. I would greatly appreciate any advice on open relationships. Girlfriend's perspective. My reasoning for suggesting the open relationship is that it serves as an agreement that fulfills our mutual desires. We can stay together while also exploring new experiences and connections. I am unsure if it is unreasonable for me to bring this up, but I have always appreciated the comfort my girlfriend provides. Since our breakup, I have contemplated the idea of being intimate with other individuals. Still, I feel that, on a romantic level, I want to be with my girlfriend. While I have never been particularly fond of open relationships, I have matured and recontextualized it concerning what we have. I believe this could be a beneficial endeavor. We have consistently shown respect to one another, and honesty is paramount. Thus, if we attempted this arrangement and it did not work, we could address it. I think we stand to gain nothing by exploring this option. We had extensive discussions this past weekend about everything, and I sense we both wish to grow while remaining united. Although breaking up is an available option, it is not my preferred choice, especially given my feelings. I believe our solidarity through challenging times has played a role, and living together while beginning college has taken its toll. I am willing to venture out and explore while still supporting each other to continue growing. Prioritizing boundaries, communication, and articulating our desires and needs are aspects we have effectively managed before, so why not apply that to this situation? I'm also facing several difficulties at home, and the emotions surrounding our breakup have intensified those feelings. However, I am beginning to think more clearly and positively. I have read about open relationships that have thrived, just as I have encountered examples of those that have failed. I wish to create my own understanding of this experience. I have numerous anxieties regarding stepping outside my comfort zone, especially since I lack a reliable role model in my mother. This new venture could enable me to expand beyond my comfort zone while being with my girlfriend. My mother has caused me emotional challenges, an issue I am currently working through with my partner's support, and it is vital for me to make independent decisions. I propose the idea of an open relationship not out of desperation, but rather with the goal of strengthening our bond while also allowing us to enjoy our initial college semesters. We have faced numerous obstacles together, and I genuinely believe we can navigate this as well. Neither of us has had exemplary relationship models in our lives, but I have always felt we have forged our own path and continue to do so. This is merely a different phase in our relationship, one we can explore without fear of causing harm to one another. I am gradually coming to terms with our breakup, which leads me to believe that this suggestion is not a desperate plea for unity. I recognize that I can live without her. I cherish our relationship and the time we have spent together, which informs my perspective on this subject. I believe we can both discover ourselves without needing to part ways and assist each other in personal growth while expressing our love for others romantically. If it does not succeed, that is acceptable as well. Story 2. I met a guy at a wedding in India. We connected deeply, but now he won't leave his startup to visit. Can a long-distance spark survive? I, 27F, traveled to India in mid-January to attend the wedding of my close friend, 26F, from university in London. I mentioned to her that I found her brother-in-law, 25M, attractive, and she conveyed this to him, stating that he expressed interest in me throughout the wedding festivities. With so much happening, we didn't truly converse until the final reception when he approached me and invited me for a tour of the city. Since my flight was scheduled to depart just 4 hours after the wedding concluded, I had already planned to spend the remainder of my personal time off exploring Southeast Asia, which visibly disappointed him. I asked for his Instagram account since the likelihood of us meeting again seemed low, but he insisted on taking my phone number instead. During the rest of my holiday, I spent my evenings on the phone with him for at least an hour each night, with one conversation lasting 5 hours. We became extremely close, which is unusual for me. We discussed everything: family, past relationships, our aspirations in life, our identities, and what we seek in future relationships, including marriage timelines. We share a similar sense of humor and enjoy the same movies, television shows, and books. I typically do not have genuine feelings for the men I date and tend to reject them quickly. Therefore, it was quite surprising to connect deeply with someone who accepted me for who I am, and I would even suggest we formed one of those rare connections people often mention. However, reality struck when I returned to New York. He was aware of my location from the start. He had inquired about me to my friend before I even told her about him. This was not new information for either of us. We communicated via text and FaceTime nearly every day, but the time difference posed challenges. He is quite affluent and lives comfortably with his parents, and he made it clear that he does not plan to leave. He often suggested that I come to Bombay, and while I'm not entirely opposed to moving there, I have only visited twice in 2 years, and as an avid traveler, there are other destinations I wish to explore with my limited personal time off. Furthermore, numerous friends within our circles observed him approach me or are aware of our situation, which would make me feel uncomfortable attending social gatherings for that specific reason. His parents are also aware, as my friend has moved in with her husband's family. The three of them even called to wish me a happy birthday, excusing themselves from their family dinner to do so. While moving to India is something I could consider, it would be much further down the line, contingent on securing a good job. My thinking is that he is not even my boyfriend, thus, without a commitment, there will be no relocation. Currently, I hold a fantastic position as a journalist at a prestigious publication, and I am hoping to transfer to our Milan office sometime this year. He is aware and supportive of this. At one point, I proposed that I would be traveling with friends to Turkey during the summer and suggested he join us with his friends for a more relaxed experience away from our respective countries. I never suggested New York as a meeting place because I knew he would not come. When I discussed the idea, he seemed hesitant, and I told him to take his time in making a decision. I did not want to pressure him, nor do I believe in forcing anyone into doing something against their will. Our communication continued as usual, but gradually it began to dwindle. One issue that troubled me was that I consistently initiated contact. He would often call me unexpectedly at 11 a.m. on a Monday when I was at work, which was manageable while working from home but impossible in the office. I mentioned this to him several times, requesting a heads up, but it seemed he did not pay much attention. It might be a cultural difference, as another Indian friend mentioned this is typical behavior. I refrained from calling him or engaging in conversation during his mornings, knowing he would be busy with his company. I attempted to call or asked him to call a few times at his suggestion when he stated I could also reach out, but he frequently ignored my attempts due to various events, dinners, or other commitments. Oftentimes, he would only take my call for a brief 10-minute chat between events, making me feel as though I was just a temporary distraction. Eventually, we had a mature, lengthy phone conversation during which we addressed everything. He expressed that he could not leave his startup for the summer trip, asserting it was not a matter of desire, but rather a professional obligation. He also mentioned he would be open to meeting in Dubai, which I indicated I would not attend until December. He felt it was unfair to continue this way if our next potential meeting was many months away. Although he wished to keep our relationship friendly and more casual, he understood if I preferred otherwise. He noted that he enjoyed our conversations and hoped I felt the same. I articulated my concerns regarding the situation and acknowledged that I genuinely appreciated our discussions, but expressed that I sensed a lack of effort. I questioned the path forward since he offered no alternative suggestions for meeting. He apologized when I indicated that many of his actions seemed convenient only for him chatting on his schedule, constantly suggesting I move to Bombay, and taking filler calls, among other things. He assured me that if I ever wished to call, he would answer. We ended the call on a positive note, with him encouraging me to reach out whenever I wanted. At that point, I decided that he ought to put in the effort since I had made my expectations clear. 2 weeks passed, and I felt anxious and upset due to not hearing from him. My best friends pointed out that I might be self-sabotaging, a tendency I am known for, and suggested that if I still cared, I should reach out. They noted that it was unusual for me to be this invested in someone. Typically, I move on from guys within a day or so. I texted him last weekend, and we resumed our usual conversation. However, after that exchange, I have not heard from him, and I wonder if he is waiting until the weekend to communicate again. My friends believe he will reach out, feeling that he owes me something, while I logically recognize that he probably does not owe me anything since we established boundaries. Regardless, I find myself wanting to communicate with him constantly. This situation has made me realize that I, the Tinman, do possess a heart. More importantly, I was reluctant to admit to myself how much I liked him for an extended period. How should I approach the topic with him about navigating this unusual long-distance, non-committed relationship, while also conveying my desire for him to invest more effort and find a way for us to meet in person? In summary, I met a man at a wedding who resides in India while I am based in New York. We formed a unique and meaningful connection, though I cannot speak for him, but we currently find ourselves in an awkward situation. He does not envision himself leaving his startup for a trip to meet me somewhere in between so we can work things out. Story 3. My fiancé, 23M, wants me 24F to either allow a threesome or permit him to have a second wife. How do I handle this situation? My fiancé and I met 4 years ago and began dating almost instantly. Everything was going well for about a month until he started being unfaithful. I discovered used condoms in his trash. At the time, infidelity was not a deal breaker for me because I grew up hearing that all men cheat, so I forgave him. Little did I realize that this would be the start of a toxic cycle. Even though I chose to remain in the relationship, I felt betrayed and unworthy, which led me to lose respect for him. I retaliated in ways that, although not technically cheating, were still disrespectful. On one occasion, I provided him with login information for a streaming site that belonged to my ex and deceived him about it. He found out later and was quite upset. On another occasion, I accidentally called him by my ex's name during a conversation. Conversely, he was known for being a player. He couldn't control himself, continued to cheat, and showed me no respect. It was a very toxic environment. At one point, he called me a whore, even though he was the one being unfaithful. Throughout it all, we loved one another and were reluctant to part ways until we finally did, 6 months later. Although we broke up, we still met each other several times a month due to mutual friends, so it was inevitable. Eventually, I resolved to move on with my life and forget him. In 2022, I began a sexual relationship with a woman whom I will refer to as my woman lover. She also happened to have mutual friends with him at the time. Since he and I would occasionally hook up, I informed him about my relationship with the woman I was involved with, and he suggested that we engage in a threesome. Initially, I opposed the idea because I was still in love with him and knew I would struggle to watch him be intimate with another woman, but eventually, I consented. During one drunken night with my woman lover, we decided to invite him over for the threesome. He arrived but brought a friend, which complicated things. I ended up feeling uncomfortable because the original plan was for a threesome, not a foursome. Thus, the plan failed. What I didn't realize until afterwards was that his friend, 25 years old, had fingered both me and my woman lover while we were too inebriated to notice. After that unsuccessful attempt, I recognized that I didn't want to engage in a threesome at all, as it could potentially hurt me. After a few months, I ended the sexual relationship with my woman lover, but chose to remain friends. A few months later, I met another man 35 years old and entered into a relationship with him. He was quite wealthy and loving. However, he was married at the time. Honestly, I do not know what came over me. There is no justification, but part of me was desperately trying to move on from my ex. A few months into the relationship, he proposed marriage, expressing his desire to take me as his second wife. As unusual as this may seem, I come from a culture where polygamy is relatively common among certain tribes, so it was not the most outrageous idea. At that moment, I agreed, but because I was still in love with my ex and believed there might still be a chance for us, I chose to have lunch with him to share the news. I hoped he would urge me not to marry this older man, claiming he still loved me and wanted to mend our past, but instead, he simply laughed at me for accepting the role of a second wife while also congratulating me. I explained to him that I was only considering marrying this man because I had given up on love, knowing I could not be with the one I truly loved him. Fast forward a month later, I regained my clarity and realized that 1. I do not want to be a second wife, and 2. I do not want to be the cause of another woman's pain, his first wife. Consequently, I ended that relationship and decided to focus on myself and my personal healing. A couple of months later, I met what appeared to be a good man, 24 years old. He was young, seemingly successful, and apparently God-fearing. I thought to myself, this is it, this is the one. However, I later discovered that he and my ex knew each other and hailed from the same hometown. Initially, I thought it best not to pursue this relationship since it might hurt my ex, but I ultimately decided that this was not about him anymore. I needed to prioritize myself, so I continued to pursue the relationship. Shortly thereafter, I learned he was a scammer and a cheater, and I immediately ended the relationship. All of these experiences led me to conclude that perhaps I should take a break from relationships, and that is precisely what I did. I focused on my personal growth, more deliberately this time, abstained from sexual activity, consistently attended church, and developed spiritually. I still interacted with men but rarely considered dating. This phase proved to be quite beneficial for me. One random Saturday, I attended a barbecue, and my ex happened to be there. Sparks ignited. It felt as if we were meeting anew, both more mature. We talked throughout the evening, and he came back to my place. We continued to see each other occasionally to explore whether we could repair our relationship until I became pregnant. We remained together during my pregnancy. He was consistently present, supportive, and involved. It marked the best period our relationship had ever experienced. So much so that we became engaged. Now, however, all those skeletons from our past have begun to resurface. He feels that everything I put him through diminished his pride, and that is essentially what we have been arguing about over the years. Let me clarify. Despite all the infidelity and disrespect he subjected me to, he believes I stripped him of his pride and harmed his ego by 1. Calling him by another man's name 2. Dating someone he knows from his hometown, and 3. Making him feel less of a man through disrespectful remarks or behavior. I have my own grievances as well. 1. He cheated on me multiple times 2. He solicited sexual relations with my best friend while assuring her I wouldn't find out. 3. He verbally and emotionally abused me by calling me derogatory names. 4. He was unfaithful while I was pregnant with 2 different women. And 5. He picked up a woman in my car to go have sex with her while I was pregnant. One might argue that he has either committed worse offenses or that we are even, but that is not the conclusion of our story. We have discussed these matters in depth, and I have shown a willingness to forgive and start anew, yet he is not receptive to the idea. Currently, he insists that in order for him to regain his pride, ego, and power, I must either participate in a threesome with him and another woman because he believes I took that away from him, which I no longer wish to do, or agree to let him take a second wife just as I was willing to be someone else's second wife, which I also do not want to do. This is the only way he claims he is willing to move forward, and the only means through which he feels he can reclaim his sense of pride. I am uncertain whether I should comply with his wishes for the sake of peace. I find myself in a difficult position and long for us to overcome this. Story 4. I bonded with a coworker during training, but after teasing her, she confessed love. I set boundaries, and now we barely speak. We work at the same location. We participated in the training together in the same group, and everything was typical. All of us got to know each other as part of the introduction: name, age, and where we are from. A few of us formed connections and stuck together, while I was the type who mingled with everyone in the group, maintaining a good rapport with all. Everything was fine. Regarding her and me, I remember that we interacted only twice when it was just the 2 of us. First, we encountered each other during a break and engaged in a brief conversation about our hometowns and interesting places to visit. Then we returned to our respective activities. Second, I believe this was actually the first instance. During a break in training, I joined a group of 4 that she was already with. I can't recall how it was just the 2 of us, but she asked for a lighter, and since I had one, I thought it would be nice to lend it to her. I had plenty of lighters, and I figured it would be easier for me to ask for one than for her. It was simply a kind gesture. However, her response was somewhat unexpected. "Wow, I really like this. Thank you so much." And I thought to myself, it's just a lighter, no big deal. Beyond that, it was merely a few greetings and farewells without much else. As the training period came to an end, everyone was assigned to different teams, and we, as a group, hardly saw each other anymore except for those who were on the same team. Then, unexpectedly, there was a redistribution of teams, and she ended up joining the one I was in. The entire team was from our training group except for one person. We all welcomed her and the other 2 who accompanied her, glad to be together again. From that moment on, nothing developed between us aside from the usual hellos and goodbyes. We were even on different shifts, so we didn't see each other often. Then we aligned on the same shift, which led to us talking more frequently and sitting next to each other during work hours. Our conversations remained general, but I occasionally engaged in light teasing purely to be friendly and maintain a fun atmosphere. We began sharing breaks and lunches, ensuring we spent more time together, and then, without any warning, the dynamic escalated. I recall a moment when we were sitting side by side, enjoying a conversation that I can't quite recall, but I do remember teasing her. For some reason, I found myself locking my gaze with hers. At that moment, I sensed that something significant was about to shift, despite my lack of intention to pursue a serious relationship. I couldn't define it precisely, but she began to act as if there was something between us. I quickly tried to indicate that there wasn't, which was true at the time, and I wanted to avoid confronting her, as I didn't want to hurt her feelings. She even started becoming protective and somewhat jealous of my interactions with other women, which made me uncomfortable. When I attempted to clarify that I simply wanted us to get to know each other better to evaluate how we felt, isn't that the usual approach? There was a preceding incident where she showed displeasure towards me, playfully yet seriously stating, "Don't talk to me." I decided to remain calm until her mood improved, hoping to resolve that minor conflict. Eventually, it did settle, but I was firm about establishing boundaries regarding joking, teasing, and playfulness to differentiate between being disrespectful and being fun. I maintained a calm demeanor throughout. During that time, she then said, "But you are going to fix this little conflict, right? You are going to take me on a date." I playfully responded, "Why?" "Everything is fine, and yes, we can definitely go out." To which she replied, "Because I love you." In that moment, I was taken aback and said, "What?" I honestly pretended not to have heard her correctly, but she didn't repeat it. I did not want to be unkind or harsh. I merely chose not to engage and respected her as she was. I maintained my discipline by realizing I would not gain anything positive from pursuing this. Consequently, I toned down my overly friendly behavior, particularly after I clumsily told her, "You look beautiful today," to which she reacted positively. All I intended was to be kind, but I recognized how foolish it was to express such sentiments without careful consideration. Being available all day, I adjusted my behavior in hopes of restoring normalcy. I aimed to maintain a friendship where we both controlled our emotions and actions, ensuring mutual respect and lighthearted fun. It became evident that she didn't appreciate my shift in demeanor and started to act upset. I tried to address the situation. However, she began to ignore me, not greeting or engaging in conversation, lacking the energy she used to exhibit. I found myself in a position of initiating interactions, yet her distant behavior prompted me to think, this isn't how it should be. Friendships and relationships require mutual effort. I reminded myself to reclaim my self-respect and to step back. Yes, that's what I told myself. As soon as I distanced myself, she remarked on how easy it was for me to do so. I then expressed, "I don't want us to be in conflict. I wish for us to have a harmonious relationship." Her reply to that was disappointing, and I reflect that perhaps I should have been more straightforward, not worrying about her feelings if honesty would have hurt her. After that, we were on good terms, but it wasn't the same as before, only brief exchanges without the previous playfulness, and I found myself exerting more effort. She eventually reached the point of being with me without acknowledging my presence, expecting that I would initiate our interactions. As soon as I sensed this shift, I decided to completely withdraw. Now, I merely wave to her and say hello, mirroring her energy as she walks away. I don't even join her when she is alone, aware that she disapproves of my actions. However, I cannot approach her after she has shown a lack of interest. I wish I could, but my own reservations hold me back from engaging further, not wanting to reveal my feelings. The reality is that I am deeply affected by this situation and think about her constantly. I never anticipated experiencing this, but she occupies my thoughts daily, from the moment I wake until I fall asleep, and I am weary of it. I'm uncertain if this is merely attachment to the care she once showed me, or if I am simply exhausted from being alone. I've never been involved in a serious relationship before. I neglected to mention this. Once she remarked, "I sometimes feel like I'm dealing with a robot," which stung a bit, but I chose not to dwell on it and instead focused on demonstrating my humanity. I do possess emotions and feelings, and I believe that when I express emotions, they must be genuine. When love is involved, I need to be sincere and expect the same in return. Anything less is unacceptable to me. I felt I had nowhere else to share these sentiments aside from here, and I am open to receiving insights and experiences from those who have been through similar situations. If you have read this far, I hope you are living a fulfilling life. Story 5. After 4 years, my boyfriend went from loving partner to distant stranger. As I tried to navigate long distance during difficult times, I found him partying instead. Can I trust him to be honest, or is it time to move on? Like most relationships, ours began wonderfully. However, after a year and a half, he ceased to be a present and committed partner. My partner still owes me $3,000 after 2 years, has stopped taking me on dates, and contributed nothing to maintaining our apartment. Intimacy declined, and he would become upset when I needed him during medical emergencies. Over time, he distanced himself from my friends and family, prioritized gaming and work colleagues over quality time, forgot our anniversary twice, and did not acknowledge my birthday, Christmas, or Valentine's Day this past year. For over a year, he relied on my car without contributing to gas or maintenance. Then, when he received a promotion, instead of paying me back, he splurged on an Apple Watch, AirPods, and trips to Chicago and Colorado. The final betrayal occurred when he stated he needed space for his mental health and would stay with his friends in town, but I later discovered he was partying in Cholum with other friends. After I moved out of our San Diego apartment due to job loss and family responsibilities, I held on to little hope that he would change. Despite visiting San Diego 5 times in 5 months and maintaining nightly FaceTime calls, he suddenly confessed that he could not manage a long-distance relationship. He proposed a break to work on himself, then admitted he was tired of rejecting other women. Aware that I do not believe in breaks or post-breakup friendships, he still asked me to remain in his life. His words about how wonderful I was felt hollow. I told him that I had repeatedly asked him to improve, change, and be a better partner by addressing my needs and pointing out where he had fallen short. He dismissed my concerns, claiming that the past is behind him and he could not change it. I argued that he had the opportunity to make an effort yesterday, last week, or before, but he never made the choice to do so. It felt like an excuse, and I expressed this to him. It was cowardly for him to wait until I was not in San Diego to have this conversation. We concluded the call with him stating that he still loved me. Upon my arrival in San Diego on Thursday, I texted him to say that I needed to collect my belongings. He lied, stating he would not be home until Saturday, but I knew that was untrue. I checked his location and saw he was at a bar near my sister's house, so I drove over to see him. By the time I arrived, he had left and turned off his location. He was working at a festival I was attending, and I knew his usual schedule. I returned to my sister's house, feeling distraught and panicked. Since our FaceTime call on Monday, I had been unable to eat or sleep, and his avoidance triggered painful memories from my previous relationship, where similar situations arose after 3 years. It felt as though I was reliving this trauma. The following morning, he texted me to say he would be home until 3 p.m. I drove over, and when I arrived, I informed him that we needed to talk. I had written down exactly what I wanted to say on my phone and read it to him. He admitted that my points were valid, except for my comment regarding him seeking other women. I still believe he is thinking of someone else, given his behavior and his statement about being tired of not entertaining other women, but he denied it, claiming he needed to focus on himself and that he did not have women pursuing him. His response felt evasive, and it seemed he was not providing me with a straightforward answer as to why he said that in the first place. I still sensed that something was amiss. He had been in constant contact with me, professing his love and how much he missed me, so his sudden desire for a break did not make sense. What could it possibly achieve when we were already living 9 hours apart? While we conversed, he continued to kiss and hold me. I left with my belongings, and he told me he would always love me. Later, he texted me, expressing gratitude for hearing my thoughts, and I replied in a similar manner. He subsequently checked in on me, asking if I had eaten or felt any better, but I had not. He mentioned that he was not feeling like himself. He stated he was home from work if I wanted to talk, so I went over, thinking he wanted to speak in person. He appeared surprised I came, even though I had informed him I was on my way. We spoke, but he still was not completely honest with me, and when I attempted to wash a dish I had used in the kitchen, he told me I could not leave his room, which felt strange as if he were trying to hide me from his roommates. He requested that I stay the night, and I obliged. The next morning, he tried to give me some of his belongings and kissed me, saying he was happy I stayed. That morning, we both knew we would see each other at the festival later. When I arrived, he seemed distant and cold. Later on, I brought him food, but his behavior remained the same, distant and unkind. After I handed him the food, he texted me to thank me and expressed a desire for more time to talk. I did not respond. The next day, I could not handle the pain and decided to leave the festival early. Later, I attempted to reach out because I had forgotten a few things at his place, but he ignored me throughout the day. When I poured my heart out in a text, his response was emotionless, offering excuses and stating he was overwhelmed with his own feelings about all of this. I asked to see him again to gain closure, but he ignored my request. On Tuesday, my last day in San Diego, I texted him to ask if he did not care to see me. He tried to avoid answering, stating he was tired and busy with work. When I pressed the issue, he said he did not think it was a good idea and suggested having a phone call instead. I had planned to leave San Diego, but my sister urged me to stay, which I did. I informed him that I would now be there until the 9th, but he never replied. I have been observing his actions, and they do not align with his words. I still love him and hoped my absence would prompt him to realize what he has lost and inspire change. I still feel as though I am left without closure and am still drawn to him, wanting to see him again. I am unsure what to do next. I still want to talk and seek the real answers. Deep down, I do not feel he is being entirely honest. How do I move forward to obtain the closure and answers I need? And can he be direct and fully truthful? Summary. My relationship began positively, but after 1.5 years, my partner became distant, ceased contributing to our relationship, and ignored my needs. He lied, shirked responsibilities, and prioritized himself. I attempted to maintain a long-distance relationship, but he admitted he could not handle it, claimed he needed space, and remarked that he was tired of ignoring women's advances. After discussing my feelings in person and seeking closure, he was evasive and distant while also saying he still loves me and displaying affection. Although I still love him, I feel as though I am being led on and not receiving the honesty I deserve, and I do not know what steps to take next. Story 6. How do I navigate a situation with someone I really like who is emotionally unavailable? Weirdest situation I have ever been in. Help. I am a 19-year-old female, and I have been seeing this 20-year-old male for almost 3 months now, meeting at least once a week. It has been incredible, and honestly, I have never liked anyone this much before. I feel that we connect very well and share similar levels of intelligence, life philosophies, and interests, and we inspire each other creatively. We started this practice where we share artwork we have created or a piece of writing we completed each week. I have been in 2 serious relationships and have never felt this way before. I can spend days with him without getting tired or wanting alone time, and I assume he feels the same way. Early on, we decided that neither of us was ready for a committed relationship and wanted to take things slowly, considering that I am not long out of a relationship myself, and he has been through some difficult experiences in the past year that have affected his emotions. Initially, I respected this decision, but now it feels like an excuse. We spent Valentine's Day in a hotel after attending a concert. It genuinely felt like we were in a relationship. He was very affectionate and made the day as enjoyable as possible for me. He kept discussing marriage and how he envisions his future wife and life with children, mentioning this every time I see him now. Since then, things have felt off. I have seen him a few times since, but he seems much more closed off. He leaves my messages for days without responding and has repeatedly told me that he does not care if I see someone else or use dating applications. A week ago, I encountered him while bar hopping with some friends. We attend the same university and live in a small city, so I run into him frequently. He was quite drunk and shared some strange things. He claimed to have power over me, boasted about leaving my messages undelivered, and asserted that he knows for a fact that I will not leave him for someone else because I like him so much, which has boosted his ego. It took me some time to process how this made me feel, and it led me to doubt myself and wonder if there was some truth to it. I do not believe that is accurate. I can leave at any time, but it is uncomfortable to feel as though he thinks that way about me. However, I also do not think I could physically pursue someone else since I do like him a lot, and the time I am spending with him makes me feel no need to seek out other relationships. The lack of communication did not help the situation. A few days ago, I asked him to go for a walk so that I could discuss what was bothering me. I told him what he had said, and he had no memory of making those comments and apologized profusely. We ended up walking for hours and enjoying each other's company until I brought up the situation again. He explained that he currently feels emotionally detached from everything, so he would not mind if I saw someone else or left him since it would not significantly affect him. He acknowledged that he is very self-involved at the moment, focusing on some kind of spiritual journey centered on himself and his work, which is why he does not really think about messaging me, but he does consider me the person he talks to the most at this time. It was a heartfelt conversation, and he shared a lot about his past that he typically does not discuss. To conclude, he expressed that he cares about me and my feelings, advising that if I felt I was becoming too attached or liked him more than he likes me, I should leave the situation. He mentioned that he would see me sometime this week and told me to message him if I had anything else to discuss. That has been the extent of our communication, since then no messages. I have sent a few and received one response, but nothing for the past 2 days. I walked past him today on campus and said hello. He replied but then walked off with his friends. I have had more time to reflect on it, and honestly, I am starting to believe that the drunken version of him might have been right. For a man who asked me out first and takes me on wonderful dates, he may indeed hold some power over my feelings, and perhaps he derives enjoyment from that despite his claims. I like him a lot, and I want him to be a long-term part of my life, but I am not someone who begs for attention from someone I am seeing, especially when they offer me so little in return. I have shared this with a few people in my life, and no one has provided me with solid advice. They do not know what to say. The situation is very inconsistent and changes from week to week. Sometimes I feel like he likes me a lot, and other times I think he could not care less. I am unsure how to proceed from here, and I worry that I might be getting ghosted. How should I handle this situation moving forward? I do not want to end it, but the complexity is increasing as time passes. Any advice? Summary: I am trying to navigate a relationship with someone who is emotionally unavailable.